All right, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today I thought I'd give you a preview of day 2 of the PGL Krakow Major. So today, on July 17th, we saw the first round of the Swiss system at the PGL Krakow Major. We saw a couple upsets, mainly the big phase upset on Inferno, which was quite interesting. It just seemed like FaZe could never get going on that map, neither on the T nor the CT side, and Big kind of ran away with that map, of course. Then we saw the probably the worst game I've seen in a while, but it was still a nail biter. The Navi G2 game, it was absolutely terrible to watch, but still ran into the absolute closing curtains of what is possible in a CS game, right? Same with the Astralis Immortals. Interestingly enough, we also saw the North C9 game. So there were a bunch of interesting games in round 1. However, I thought we'd break down round 2 and see just, on what maps these possible where these possible matchups can go in terms of maps, and also who I think might edge out the other. So we're gonna start off the day, July 18th, tomorrow, with North versus Penta, and to be quite honest, this is an interesting matchup. I mean, both of them should be kind of praying that they got, or not praying, but thanking the Lord that they got who they did, because I think that, Penta has quite a possible chance of upsetting North, and yes, I do believe it would be an upset, but, Penta could also have gotten the likes of FaZe or Navi, or, honestly, even Immortals look quite deadly, especially on that overpass, which is a map I think that Penta might want to play. But in terms of North versus Penta, I think this can go into 2 maps, mainly Mirage and Overpass. I don't think, North is not going to get Cobble versus Penta. Similarly, it just feels like, Mirage or Overpass are going to be the 2 maps. Penta can play both of them, North can play both of them. We saw North play that close Cloud9 game, so, they definitely have some they've warmed up on the map in round 1 here, so it might be, kind of a comfort pick for them going into that matchup and get into something that they've already warmed up on in the major, because, even though that game was fucking ridiculous, the North Cloud9 game, honestly, I thought that was just a game of who fucked up more, to be honest. There are so many rounds that both teams just overlooked possible positions of the opponents. A bunch of Cloud9 rounds comes to mind, specifically that play on B apps in the second pistol round where Magisk, just gets to pick off the entire team because they refuse to check, that cubby position in B apps. And for me, it's ridiculous that Cloud9 would never check that. What team wouldn't play, or at least have one player at least holding B apps in the pistol round? That position is so common, it's very much an oversight to just overlook it. We also saw, MSL being allowed to be posted up in that ninja spot on an A take by Cloud9, and then eventually, disrupting the take. And North had, a couple blunders as well. So, honestly, mainly just getting picked off by, Stewie on that T side. There was one play where he was just allowed to go up connector and get, 2 picks, and that's that. All of a sudden, you're in a 5v3. So despite having kind of a sloppy game on Mirage, I still think that North would be comfortable going in versus Penta, even though, Penta does have that tactical element to their play. I still feel like North with MSL could definitely edge them out on a map like Mirage, especially with having that strong T side, and if they're able to shut down the T side of Penta, that's gonna work wonders. Similarly on Overpass, I mean, I do think that these teams are kind of similar. North might be a bit more tactical, but to be honest, I mean, Penta has a bunch of playmakers. I mean, we've seen HS in the game versus SK was, apart from that first half on the T side, on the CT side, he was making all kinds of plays. So I think that matchup is gonna be all about shutting down the opponent's T side, and I think both are going to be comfortable going into a map like Mirage or Overpass where they can play that, you know, tactical-based T side and then hope to overcome the opponent's CT side, and then on the CT side shutting down the opponent's T side. And I think that's going to be kind of a battle of the minds, and probably going to end up on Mirage or Overpass. And despite Penta showing promise and having some pretty intense firepower, I'll still edge it to North. North have been here way, what's the word I'm looking for? More times than Penta, basically. They have that veteran capacity, and they'll probably come in and keep their cool. And if the game would run into its late stages, those final rounds, and I think that North have that clutch factor over Penta to edge it out. So I'll take North for that matchup in North versus Penta, for sure. And then moving on, the next game is going to be Mouse versus FaZe. This is kind of interesting in terms of storytelling, just because you have, Mouse now without Nico actually looking better than they did with him, facing off against, Nico and FaZe, and we all know where they are. They're pretty much the second best team in the world. So it's basically a story of two parts that became way better without each other. So it's good in terms of storytelling, and honestly, I think, some of the maps kind of line up for these guys. I mean, we've seen Mouse beat FaZe on Mirage multiple times, and I still think that FaZe, I don't think it's cockiness, but I think they do have the confidence and are willing to go into something like a Mirage and just prove to Mouse that, we're at a major now and this is our turf, so just, get the hell out of here. And I definitely see, a potential Mirage coming out. I also see a potential Train coming out. We all know that FaZe can be deadly, with that Rain CT side aggression up on Team Main, as well as, Nico's always been stellar on that map. And that, I still think, in my honest opinion, I think Alu can be dangerous on Train. I think that sometimes he proves that he can play that transitional AWP playstyle where he holds one angle, goes for the shot, reverts back to a new position, holds that angle, takes a shot, etc., etc. Similarly, I think, Mouse, I mean, for Oscar, Train should just be a playground for this guy. It's such an AWP-heavy map, and both teams, have very decent AWPing. So I definitely see it possibly going to either Mirage or Train, and regardless of the map, it can go anywhere. I'm still gonna have FaZe edge that game out slightly, despite having this slow start against Big. I have FaZe making the playoffs, and I do have them going 1-1 here in round 2. The next map, or the next match rather, is going to be Flipside versus Navi. Now this is an incredibly interesting matchup because honestly, I think both teams are probably going to want to go into something like an overpass. Train is possible, but I think the interesting thing would be seeing Blade, go into overpass versus Navi and completely dissect them like they did versus Hellraisers at the major qualifier. Now, of course, Navi is a completely different opponent. It's not going to be as easy as completely dissecting Hellraisers and completely destroying their overpass. But I think if Flipside were able to do that, I think it would prove a lot. So I would like that game to go into an overpass, but it might be it might be a Train as well. Although I don't know, do Navi play Train anymore? I actually have no idea, but I definitely want to see it going into an overpass. I think that would be just the most interesting matchup, especially, you're going to have pretty much the CIS region's two phenoms, right? You're going to have Electronic versus Simple, and if both can fire on all cylinders, that's going to be probably one of the most entertaining matchups of tomorrow. Moving on, we have Immortals versus Vega Squadron. Now, fuck me if both of these teams lucked out in this draw, right? Immortals especially getting Vega Squadron in this round. I mean, with the likes of FaZe, Na'Vi, even North, I mean, Immortals literally pulled the easiest team, and in my opinion, Immortals isn't even close to being one of the higher seeded teams that went 0-1 in the first day, right? So Immortals lucked out here with Vega. I think it's going to end up on either Cash or Inferno, and I think that Immortals are just going to edge out Vega. I think, honestly, we know that Immortals have incredible inconsistency. It's true, yes. I mean, who knows what might happen? But I still feel like if you get an inch out of Henny and KNG, this is just going to be Immortals' game, right? I mean, Bolt is solid. Steel just needs a couple impact rounds, and then, Lucas can play to his regular level, and I think that they're going to easily edge out Vega on either Cash or Inferno, and I think that those are the two maps that are that they're gonna end up on. So, or either one of the two. So, I have Immortals, winning that one quite heavily. Did I forget to predict Flipside Na'Vi? I think I did. I have Na'Vi winning that game either way. I think it's good. It might be an interesting game, obviously a domestic matchup, but Na'Vi are going to edge that one out, I think. If not, just dumpster Flipside. Who knows? Next up is Big versus Cloud9. Now, this might be an interesting game, actually, especially with the resurgence of Cloud9 and their new playstyle, the fact that they will play patient on that T side, and also have that fast element. Their diversity on the T side means that versus a team like Big, who is very tactical and have, a mastermind like Gabi, it means that they're going to be able to do way more than they were able to, just a couple months ago. So I think that with this new C9, I think they have a very good shot versus Big because, pound for pound, player for player, C9 are going to outfrag Big. Sure, Nex showed up this first game versus FaZe, which was interesting considering that Nex has famously been quite lackluster at majors and versus tier 1 in general, but Tabsen might come big, but C9 have the ability as well, and C9 equally, or not equally, but also have way better opping available to them, and I see this going to either a Train or an Inferno, which are very op-heavy maps, and if Skadoodle can get running with that op, I think it's a lock for C9. I also see this possibly going to Mirage. The question is if Big is willing to play Cloud9 on Mirage, because Cloud9, the past few events, and even in this one, the first round they did play that Mirage, are quite comfortable now, so it's questionable whether Big would actually let Cloud9 play Mirage, but if they do, yet again, the op is going to have immense impact, and I just think that whatever map this goes to, and I think it's most likely it's going to be Train or Inferno, C9 are just going to edge them out because the equipment they have available to them in their roster with Skadoodle versus Kiev is substantial. Also, the playmaking of Stewie 2K, is incredible, and I don't think that Big, while Tabsen can have some amazing carry performances, I just feel like C9 has way too much playmaking for Big to handle, and who knows, C9 might throw some CT aggression in on both Train and Inferno, and then just disrupt whatever plans Big has. So that's going to be an interesting game. I mean, it might just be because we saw Big versus FaZe, they incorporated a bunch of CT aggression, so it'd be interesting to see two teams that could be really proficient. And honestly, even if I edge C9 out. Like I have them edging out big in terms of skill. It's not like they're, what FaZe was going into the FaZe versus big, right? This almost feels like...
That still only counts as one!
Sorry about that. There was some audio chicanery with the intent of disrupting this this video, so I have no idea what that was. But anyways, where did I leave off? Big versus Cloud9, right? I think, in a matchup with both very CT aggressive and, equally showing that they have capable tactics on the T side, it's going to be a very interesting match. The next game is Gambit versus G2, and honestly, in this 1-0 bracket, I think these first two games have, like, Big versus Cloud9, motherfucker, they're both lucky, right? Pulling each other in this 1-0 bracket is fucking crazy. Same with Gambit versus G2, honestly, because G2, it didn't look like they knew what they were doing on that map versus Na'Vi, right? On Overpass, first of all, they let a coin toss aside, and then, with that level of arrogance, you'd think they had something going into that map, but it proved to be, just a CT side. And what the fuck are you gonna try to win the tournament by completely fucking up on the T side, showing that you can't do anything, and then carry, or like having carry performances on the CT side by the likes of NBK and Kenny S? No. How the fuck is that going to work versus SK and Astralis? It's just not. So I think Gambit are kind of lucky here, because Gambit with Zeus, if they can post a good T side, with what we've seen from G2, I mean, I'm not going to read too much into it, but fuck me, they look like they were completely fucking lost. And I think that Gambit is a team that can, really take them to the limit in terms of T sides, and that's really going to show us what G2 actually have coming into this major. So I have, maps like Inferno or maybe even a Cobblestone going into this matchup, which would be interesting because, in my opinion, it would be like one of the only Cobblestones we'd ever see, right, in this major, unless like G2 maybe play SK in the playoffs and it might pop up in a best of 3. But it'd be very interesting to see these two teams on Cobblestone. I mean, Cobblestone, fuck me, that's a T-sided map, so who knows with this G2. I don't know that this G2 or the past G2s that we've seen is the same G2 that we saw at ESL Pro League Season 5, right? So who knows how their T-side looks on Cobblestone. Their T-side might be way more comfortable on Cobblestone than it looked on Overpass, but they look completely fucking lost on that Overpass T-side. It didn't even look like they were trying something and then, oh, you know what, Na'Vi are just edging them out in terms of fragging. No, that game was two CT sides completely shutting down the T side. So versus Gambit, a team that, posts very good T sides, I think that G2 can find themselves in, quite the pickle here. So if it goes on to something like an Inferno or a Cobblestone, I think that, especially on Inferno, Gambit are very capable of posting like a 7 T-side half, if not like 8 rounds or 9 rounds on the T side. And that's really going to be difficult for G2, because that means that G2 are going to have to either come back or start off with a very strong CT side, or T side, sorry. And I don't know if we've seen that G2 have the T side that is required to accomplish such a thing, So, honestly, on Inferno and Cobblestone, I might actually have to... I'm going to go for a little bit of an upset. It might be an upset on the surface, but I think that Gambit actually has a very strong fighting chance here versus G2, so I'm actually going to pick Gambit to edge out G2. Next game is going to be SK versus Astralis, and in a world in which the 1-0 bracket has Big versus Cloud9 and Gambit versus G2, we have fucking SK versus Astralis. Now, how the fuck does that happen? This is why Swiss system needs proper fucking seeding, because this is the fucking anathema of the Swiss system, in my opinion. Like, sure, we have SK. Where can this possibly go? Honestly, this can go on a whole bunch of different maps. It's not going to go on Nuke. It's not going to go on Cobblestone, but with this new SK, they're probably not going to let Astralis play Overpass. But to be honest, it might be something that might slip through, especially with Astralis' performance today versus Immortals. SK might take a look at that and say, maybe we'll, venture an attempt on Overpass versus Astralis. But more likely is, something like a Train would be interesting. Something like a Train. I doubt that it would go onto onto a Mirage. It could go onto something like Inferno, but honestly, Astralis know that SK have already played Inferno this tournament and managed to squeeze out a victory. So the likeliest maps, honestly, is like a Train or an Overpass, in my opinion. Who do I have picked? Like on Overpass, I might have to, give Astralis the edge. On a Train, I don't know. Honestly, I think even on Overpass, if SK managed to keep up that CT aggression, Fur and even Phelps just disrupting Astralis T side, I think that SK have a very good chance on a map like Overpass. Also on a map like Train, we know that Fur loves to make those aggressive plays. We also know that Phelps is very aggressive, so Astralis might have a difficult time on the T side, and I might have to edge out SK on all the maps, in all honesty. I feel like, of course, we've seen some some flaws coming in from both of them in round one, but obviously it's the first map of the tournament. We know that both of them actually tend to start fairly slow in these, big events, so it doesn't really say much that they had to, fight to their last breath in order to get those victories. But I mean, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna say SK edge out Astralis on Overpass and Train. If it goes to Mirage, I have SK taking that. What else? Inferno, I have SK taking that as well. They're not gonna play Nuke. They're not gonna play Cobblestone. What map am I missing? I'm missing a map. So either Mirage, Overpass, Train, Inferno, or a Cash. No, they're not going to play Cash. I don't think Astralis wants to play SK on Cash. So honestly, given the map pool, I have to give this one to SK. I think SK is going to take this one, regardless of the map. I think SK has proven that they're actually stronger on most of the maps. But if anyone's going to beat SK on most of these maps, it's probably going to be Astralis, especially with the form that G2 has come into this tournament with. I thought, initially that G2 was probably going to be the team that could, give SK a run for their money, but who knows? Maybe G2 shape up in time for the playoffs if they make it there. The final match of the day is going to be VP versus Fnatic, a classic matchup, of course. All veteran players. So in that regard, it's going to be very interesting to see. It's going to be it's probably going to be very entertaining. I think it could just be an all-out brawl, if I'm completely honest, because we saw the VP game on Nuke versus Vega is, honestly, I don't know how much I can take from that. First of all, it's Vega Squadron, probably the worst team out of all the teams at the major. Vega Squadron let them play VP's best map, the only map that VP have proven that they actually have a game plan on, and the most likely map that they're going to go into versus Fnatic is like a Mirage or Cash, and VP haven't proven anything on those maps, so I'm just going to give Fnatic the edge. I think that Fnatic, with their new playstyle, showing, how they're willing to play the T side more patiently. We've seen in the past that, Fnatic are going for way more aggressive CT side plays, especially Dennis. And if Fnatic can get in the heads of VP on that CT side, I think they're going to set themselves up for a great T side as well. They've shown that they can really, bang out some of these teams on the T side. So I'm gonna edge it. I'm gonna give Fnatic the edge on that matchup, and they're probably gonna take it on something like a Mirage or a Cash. So yeah, that's my preview for day 2 of the PGL Krakow Major.